And now there's this, a news grassroots movement urging Democrats who are fed up with their party to hashtag walkaway. It's called the Walkaway Movement, and it's gaining serious momentum. Joining us now, Candace Owens of Turning Point USA. Candace, you and I talked about this a little bit on Friday. I cannot believe over the weekend, that's all I saw on Twitter, and people are really grateful. I know also Turning Point's working on a similar campaign, but explain to the audience what's going on here.
Look, I think it's the most natural thing in the entire world. Unfortunately, the left and the Democrats, the party is unrecognizable to many people, especially millennials. They've become violent, they've become extreme, and I think beyond that, they have really radical ideas. Altogether, we're talking about socialism as a platform, which, as we both know, has killed over 100 million people in the last 100 years. How can people say on the left anymore?
But the notion also, though, that people are now brave enough to walk away. I mean, listen, you take a considerable amount of backlash if you're part of any sort of special interest group that is expected to be Democrat. And people are shocked when you're not a Democrat. If you're a black person and you're not a Democrat, people are shocked. If you're Hispanic and you're not a Democrat, people are shocked. And it takes a certain amount of courage to, quote, hashtag walk away.
You know, it definitely does. And I think what we can contribute this to is social media. Social media has provided that courage to people because you're looking around and you're seeing so many like-minded individuals pop up. Me, as a black person who says, look, I have conservative values. The many people that trailblazed before me, like Larry Elder, Condoleezza Rice, and Dr. Ben Carson, they didn't have social media in the way that we have it today, which allows us to springboard off of their ideas and make it okay to come out. The walk away hashtag was started by a gay hairdresser in New York City. So we're seeing so many people pop up. And as I said, this is just the beginning. I really do believe we are seeing the end of the Democratic Party as we know it.
But, you know, so the walkaway movement has started because people are just fed up. You know, good-hearted, good-natured people who have good intentions, who may identify with one or two things of the liberal ideology or left side ideology, and don't know where the essence of it comes from and haven't thought through that, are beginning to see that, wait a minute, they don't represent me anymore. I need to get away from them. And they're walking away. So on one hand, I congratulate you. It's congratulations from my heart, heartfelt congratulations on seeing what was right in front of you, seeing like how vitriolic it has gotten, and understanding that doesn't match up with your personal ideology. That's what personal choice is all about. And you've seen it, and you have the bravery to walk away from it.
In a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd, and you push back on them, and you tell them they're not welcome.
The walkaway movement is taking the internet by storm. It's reached over 2 billion people and is basically a bunch of people explaining their story, how they left the left, how they went from liberal or democratic to moving further right or just supporting President Donald Trump. It was started by a page called The Unsilent Majority, who is a gay former liberal who came out and explained why he considers himself now conservative and completely disgusted with the left wing. Millions of people feel just like him from every race, religion, sexual orientation, and ethnicity. But the news simply doesn't want to report on it. Most mainstream outlets, and certainly liberal-leaning outlets, just ignore this blatant reality that is further pushing and scaring millions of people like Brandon away. Here are a bunch of stories and accounts that you'll never see on the news. Voted for Bill Clinton, Al Gore, John Kerry, and Obama. My eyes were open once I found out the real frauds that the Democratic Party had become. None of them ever delivered any promises ever made, until Trump came along. The rest is history. I was a Democratic activist for 15 years, but the 2016 election opened my eyes. I don't recognize the party anymore. It is corrupt and hostile to independent thinkers. Its leaders are divisive and hypocritical. It advances no ideas or serious policy, just hostility. Walk away. She even provided pictures of her supporting and campaigning for John Kerry. As a woman, I am not a victim. and lifelong Democrat for Trump. He is not a victim. This video will inspire many others to rethink what the Dem Party represents. I'm a non-affiliated voter, fiscally conservative, socially liberal. I never wanted to lean towards either party. But after 10 years of being called racist and now Nazi just for disagreeing, seeing the hate and division, I'll not vote Dem. They are ripping the USA apart. As a gay guy, nothing was more infuriating in 2016 than being told I should vote based on my sexuality, especially since my gay vote was owed to someone who supported 2 federal anti-gay laws and took millions from anti-gay despots. It was an easy choice to walk away from the Democrats. I'm a gay conservative, and I'm nobody's gimmick. I'm a free thinker who doesn't vote on one issue. Life is complex. I had less difficulty coming out as gay to some family than I did as a conservative to some liberal friends. Walk away. This sounds eerily similar to Caitlyn Jenner's experience, who once said, "It was harder for her to come out as a Republican than it was as a transgender." Think about that. Think about the intolerance there that someone transgender is trying to tell you. I was a liberal who got all my news from late night comedians. I just assumed because I was gay, I had to vote Democrat. I voted for Obama his second term. I started off supporting Hillary. Then I actually started paying attention and informing myself. Voted for Trump in 2016. I abandoned the Democratic Party when I realized they had abandoned the inner cities. Walk away. I walk away from the left when it became clear they prefer to view people by victim hierarchy. It's amazing how quickly that tolerance falls away when said victim doesn't fall in line with the agenda. A woman can't want gun rights? Nay, nay. Women can only want abortions. In 2016, when Hillary Clinton said she kept hot sauce in her bag and then threw at Jay-Z and Beyonce to entice black voters, I had to walk away. That moment put it all together for me, that the black community was being duped ideologically by Democrats and entertainers. MAGA. Zen reflect. Walk away. I didn't walk away. They walked away from me. When it became all about telling other people how bad they are, rather than helping your fellow citizens, that's when I realized something had changed. I left the Democratic Party in my 20s after seeing what's been happening with the economy. My entire Polynesian family turned from blue to red, and I never looked back. Hey, I'm originally from South America, and I could tell you that my former country tried socialism and communism, and guess what? That crap doesn't work. It's all a con and a big fantasy. There are many others like me that have experienced Marxism, and we know how much it sucks. Being independent, I voted for Obama twice, but the left went too extremely far left for me. I refuse to be told how I should think. I have been a proud leftist my entire life. I can't be anymore. The silencing, the violent rhetoric, the moral panic, the fear-mongering, the demand for equal outcome, not just equal opportunity, the coercion of speech, the misleading, the flat-out lying. Walk away. There are so many more accounts from celebrities, from people of all genders, races, religions, ethnicities. I can't include them all, but this is the reality that the news is not showing you. This is a large reason why everybody's so confused. How could this be happening? How could this be happening? Why is this happening? Well, mainly because a large bulk of the country that is growing and growing and growing and growing is not being represented on the television, in social media, or in mainstream publications. Personally, for me, my walkaway moment was when I saw how the system really worked at the core. I saw not only how they treated Bernie Sanders, but more importantly, how they treated Bernie Sanders supporters. They made no effort to talk to people, to communicate with them, to connect with them, to make people feel them and understand. It was just a bunch of hate, guilting, and flat-out biased media. I saw what was really going on, and that the late-night hosts, the comedians, the trusted news networks that everybody thinks are so trustworthy, liberal news outlets, feminist news outlets, social media sites, the featured news sections were not only incredibly biased, incredibly misleading, incredibly hateful, and incredibly divisive, but I saw that truth and honesty was not their priority.
President Obama was the last Democratic president I voted for. I voted for him on his first term because everything he said seemed so great and he had us all so fooled. President Trump is the first Republican president that I voted for, and even though that R is at the end of his name, I still do not consider him what I have known in my past to be a Republican. This man has a good heart. He has a good soul. And it's about time that people start really looking into that and quit taking everything that the mainstream media tells you as the absolute gospel.
Earlier tonight, I spoke with Ben Shapiro, editor-in-chief of the Daily Wire. What do you make of this? Is it an anomaly, or do you think this is a movement?
No, I do think this is a movement. I think the next wave of Democrats are going to be much closer to Bernie Sanders brand Democrats than even Nancy Pelosi brand Democrats. And what you see here is the sort of howling at the moon branch of the Democratic Party, in which they throw out whatever radical proposal they want and then suggest that this is truly authentic, that moral clarity lies in making proposals that are completely untenable, that will never be paid for. You know, this person was on MSNBC this morning, and she was asked specifically about how she'd pay for all of this, and she proceeded to blab for a solid 2 minutes without giving an answer to that question, because she doesn't have a way of paying for any of this. But, of course, the Democratic base has decided that it is much more important to have somebody who is virtue signaling about why everybody should have a government job and why housing should be government provided than to actually have candidates who have policies that can never be implemented.
Yeah, she was talking about President Trump also earlier on MSNBC and calling him a authoritarian hyper-capitalist is the way that she termed him. And, you know, when you look back, let's look back at this shot from President Trump, and the difference in President Obama is how they approach capitalism.
If you got a business, that you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
Nobody's cut regulations like we have. Nobody's created tax cuts like we have.
I mean, there can't be sharper voices that are more different on this issue than we've had in the last two presidents, Ben.
No question. But and I think that's what the Democrats are picking on, is the fact that the Democrats have always been moving in this direction, or at least they have been significantly in the past 8 years. There's a reason Bernie Sanders came very close to knocking off Hillary Clinton in primaries, and it is pathetic to say that a near octogenarian is the wave of the future, but I think that Bernie Sanders has a lot more acolytes among the under 30 crowd than Hillary Clinton ever did, and this is pretty good proof of that.
I thought this was, you know, particularly ironic. Lin-Manuel Miranda, who I think is a genius. I thought Hamilton was wonderful, but I think it's interesting that someone who essentially wrote a musical that is a love letter to the founding fathers and to the Federalist Papers and to Alexander Hamilton is applauding. He's saying, congratulations to you. You know, for this woman who is essentially, you know, not essentially, she's put herself out there as a socialist. What do you make of that?
Yeah. And, you know, she's as radical as can be. But, again, it is very easy to virtue signal about policies that have no impact when they're never implemented. Yeah. Bernie Sanders never did anything in the Senate until he ran for president. And I highly doubt that any of the policies that are espoused by Ocasio-Sanchez are really going to result in anything real here, because it's easy to go home and say that big government's going to solve all your problems. When it comes time to hash out the actual legislation, it's going to be pretty difficult to get that stuff passed. So the Democrats, who are so all-fired eager about the new wave of the Democratic future, they may find that this is not in the mainstream. This is a New York district. It has been a Democratic district for 20-odd years. I mean, longer than that. But the person she replaced had been a 10-term congressperson. So it's not as though winning a Democratic primary means you're the wave of the future all across America. It means you want a Democratic Party in New York, for goodness sake.
Yeah.